Alright, we are through the first day of the FISSURE Playground 2 playoffs. I had to wake up far too early in the morning for this shit, so let's try and keep it close and concise. G2 had a hard-fought battle against the Mongolz that went all 3 maps, but with an 11th hour disappearance from Heavy God, G2 ultimately fell short, with the Mongolz advancing past them. After that, we had a bunch of 2-0 not very competitive series. We had Team Liquid absolutely blanking Aurora in hilarious fashion, Furia looking like the best trained team in the world in their first map against Astralis, and then a cutthroat double overtime thriller on Nuke resulting in their victory. And we ended the day with a speed run from the Falcons, just utterly running over Pain until they left the server, Nico, Kioske, and Bubblesj looking oh so good in the process. Let's go ahead and break it down and set the tone for tomorrow's semifinals. If you guys enjoy this kind of coverage, you can show me leaving a like, leave a comment down below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, help me in 10K subs by the end of the year. Also, follow me on Twitch.tv/LionHeartZ2. Do it! And lastly, before we get started, I would like to thank today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by SkinsMonkey, a CS2 trading website. You put in the skins that you want to trade, you select what you want, you use my code LionHeartZ for up to $5 off, or click the top link in the description, and boom, new drip.
Nice.
You can also use my code for a 35% deposit bonus if you want to buy with real money. And they have a free section with cool giveaways. So check the top link in the description, use my code to buy 15 Dragon Lores to let them know I sent you their way, and thank you to SkinsMonkey for sponsoring this video. Okay, let's kick it into gear. We started off this G2 vs Mongol series on Mirage, and this was definitely a tale of two T-sides, as both teams would really excel at their attacking, but not be able to defend jack shit. The Mongols would win the first 5 rounds before G2 could throw a round on the board, but would fail to convert 2 back-to-back rounds at any point during this first half. Senzu came out the gate gunning. He would have a fantastic opening half, going for 13 kills, 6 deaths, and a 1.80 rating. Just doing a phenomenal job operating as the backup for 9-10 out mid. He'd oftentimes be the guy going up cat late into these B splits or leading the charge out of apartments occasionally, but whatever he was doing, when he got onto the bomb sites, he was finding consistent impact, huge multi-kills, a lot of openers. He was really frying compared to his otherwise quiet group stage. On the other side of the coin, Sunpias was really leading the way for G2 early. He was pretty much responsible for their only round wins on the half, whether it was here on round 6 where he did a really good job of rotating around the op, whether it was going down connector to fire down into underpass, rotating back through into CT to reinforce the late A head. He was doing a consistent job of giving Mongols different looks so they couldn't pre-fire, pre-nade, or otherwise push him off of his spots. Of course, the main problem being that G2 couldn't win consecutive rounds in this first half, as right after this, Senzu would fire out B like a goddamn missile and get a huge quad kill in a 5v2 situation that G2 should be winning damn near every time. Now, this cubby area outside of market window is an extremely strong spot for the T's to sit, but if I had to give G2 one bit of criticism here, is that forcing 4 players through market is just totally inadvisable. With nobody going through cat, when Heavy God goes down in apartments, that gives Senzu enough room to just manipulate himself into 1v1s. He was never challenged into a double swing this entire retake, and he was able to cut them down because of it. I think crucially, G2 took the last round of this half before going over to their T side, to get them just a little bit of a kick in the ass. If they had gone down 10-2 and then lost the pistol round, that's almost an impossible comeback 9 times out of 10, and it's just fun watching Sunpias take control here. It's always the prettiest play in Counter-Strike when you watch a player successfully do the window to cat jump, get on top, shoot over the top of the top mid smoke, and just destroy the T's attempt at mid control. It's just always fun to watch pros make that play happen. We continue into the second half. Unfortunately, the Mongols snagged the pistol round plus 1 more a little bit later on, getting up to 11 rounds pretty early, so G2 are really backs up against the wall now, playing from an 11-6 deficit. Getting started, Sunpias is going to open up this round with a great pick boosted over the top mid-smoke, catching a player at the bottom of connector. Not long after, Blitz catches Hunter on a gray pop flash into underpass, but the B pushes on. Maze is going to get an entry on Techno at catwalk, pushing out of the apps. He gets a second on Mazinho pushing towards market, but Senzu over in mid turns back from catwalk and takes care of Mobs and Sunpias on the flank, leaving us in a 2v2. With Blitz coming through apartments, there is a chance for this round to go their way, but once he goes down, Senzu picks up the op and opts for the save. They only end up with the op and a couple of upgraded pistols, so we skip past that round into the round after. It's now 11-8. Once again, Sunpias is going to do really well on the openers, grabbing a pick on Blitz through the wall of window. However, 9-10 is going to equalize it not long after with a nice flick onto Hunter. Mouths is going to extend into the connector smoke and hold, while the rest of G2 rotate quietly towards B. Mouths' goal here is to sell the idea that an A split is still on the board, and with a cheeky late resmoke for Tom Connector, he creeps through on the stairs and catches 9-10 on a peek from Ticket Booth before getting traded out. But this is enough to hold the remaining 8 players there firmly, leaving Techno in this 3v3 as the lone B defender. He can't get a pick for his cause before going down, and we go into a 3v2 post plant that the Mongols simply aren't going to invest too much time into. They're going to opt for the save. G2 continue this pace, battling the game back to a tied state 11-11. So it looks like we're in a good position for G2 to maybe threaten overtime or even an outright win. So what went wrong? In a word, it was Senzu. In this pivotal round, they're going to go for a straight up B hit, and Senzu is just going to have a masterclass of a hold below B window in Get Right. This M4 spray is immaculate. He dodges the flashes that are coming over perfectly, and he wipes G2 out of the server. This is one of the most classic spots to hold in the entire game, and as anyone who's ever played on Refrag will tell you, it's not easy to catch those players jumping out of the window, so Senzu just operates his spray control as crosshair placement perfectly to take all 3 picks. Definitely a crushing way to lose a comeback, but full credit to G2 as we transition to Dust 2, they would come alive in a big way and hand an L to Mao so quick and severe, you wouldn't even believe they just lost such a close fought first map. Their T-side ran away with the game, 8 straight rounds to open up, Malbs at the front with Heavy God just destroying every bomb site they encountered. Now, full credit to the Mongols because they closed this first half, managing to stop the bleeding with winning 4 straight. They converted the pistol round on their T-side and looked like maybe we might have a game on our hands, but as soon as G2 got to their full buys, they dominated the rest of this game. Maddies was doing efficient work once again as kind of this rotator between B and mid. Sun Pius, though he did not put up the same numbers as on Mirage, maintained his really efficient play in terms of openers, going positive in that regard. G2 led the way in terms of opening kills 11-8, and with 9-10 having a very bad map, it felt like the Mongols lacked that opening punch to break into 5v4 situations. So with G2 battling back and tying up the series, we're heading to Ancient, which is a map that both teams love to play, and it feels like we're setting up for a classic finish here. Both teams are playing really competitive stuff. It looks like it's going to be a close game to the very end. However, to put it simply, G2 lacked in firepower in the most explicit way possible throughout this entire series, as Heavy God would have one of his worst games I've seen in quite a while, ending with a disastrous 6-18 scoreline, with Sampaius only doing marginally better at 10-16. It was really Malbs, Hunter, and Maddies doing the bulk of the work to keep them alive, but with everything else going pretty much as well as it could have for the Mongols, with 9-10 Senzu and Mizzino leading the way in their regard, the firepower difference was simply too much to overcome. Despite that, there was still a window where maybe G2 could have made it happen. The round that closed the door so strongly, though, was definitely the one that Mongols got match point on, as early on, Hunter, while getting fully blind, will get a double kill trade after Maddies goes down to give G2 a 4v3 advantage on an underbot Mongol squad. And after some finagling, Senzu's going to reposition, pick up one of the dropped AKs, rotate through mid to help facilitate this A split. He's going to be out solo mid with one G2 player at Donut, Heavy God coming through caves, and another player in CT ready to attack this A hit. Senzu is going to take his time, clear all his angles, and then identify the player in Donut and take some pot shots. He's then going to quickly turn back and sit Heavy God down on the peek through caves. I firmly believe that Heavy God gets this kill pretty much every other time, but he takes the peek, misses, and goes down, giving Senzu room to turn back to Donut and finish off the second kill, totally blowing open what was a disadvantaged situation into an automatic save and match point for the Mongols. Just a sign of how poorly the Heavy God was playing at the very end, and it cost G2 at the ultimate moment. So G2 were denied their chance to go back-to-back this early on in the playoffs, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. They didn't really play their A1 Counter-Strike in this game, and the Mongols are one of the very best teams in the world. G2 has still shown nothing but excellence so far in their resurgence, and I'm sure we'll be seeing them in more playoffs in the future. For the Mongols, they took care of business, and Senzu continues to shine in playoff environments, which had been so much of his issue in the past, and that's just great to see. Alright, let's talk about Liquid and Aurora, because on one hand, the dead team buff does need to be studied by a team of scientists, and on the other hand, Aurora, what the fuck? Why are you guys like this? I fucking hate watching this team most of the time. Jesus Christ. This went 2 games, a 13-9 on Mirage and a 13-8 on Inferno. That's right, Aurora failed to get double digits against a now confirmed 100% dead Team Liquid roster. Known group stage merchant Zantara strikes once again, putting up a pitiful performance after dominating everybody in sight before the lights got too goddamn bright. I don't even know, man. I don't even know if, like, this warrants my effort in terms of the analytical stuff, because what do I say? For Team Liquid, none of this matters because the roster is changing. For Aurora, We all know what goes wrong here. Major's calling his dog shit. Zontaras disappears. Wakadian and Woxic are the only two players who remain any kind of semblance of good or accurate or anywhere near what they normally put up in the group stage, and then they just go out pitifully. The only time this team does anything in the playoffs are in Mickey Mouse tournaments like fucking the EWC. If it's a real event with a real format, you can bet that Aurora are going to be real shit when the playoffs start. And once again, we are faced with the time-honored question of what do you do to get better? Because the floor for Aurora is really good. This team will not fall out of the top 10 until Zontaras truly regresses and is no longer a top 20 player. So they will continue to rock up the tournaments, dominate the group stage, raise all of our expectations, and then promptly let us all down. I just feel like that's going to be the eternal cycle. So they're going to be no worse than like the 9th best team in the world, but good God, will I never, ever, 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 ever bet on them to do something. And of course, the one time I do that is going to be when they actually make a playoff run and prove everybody wrong. But of course, that'll be an anomaly for one event max. I was going to go a lot more in depth about this game, but it's just not worth my fucking time. We are going to look at one round though, because this is the hilarity of how bad Aurora can play sometimes. We're deep. 9-8 scoreline. Really pivotal shit. Any point you win a round, you break the economy, you take the lead, you probably win the game. And Aurora, they get the A side control. Woxic dies on catwalk, gets traded out. The 4 other players get out on A. They have CT smoked. Chewy is stuck behind Firebox admittedly, but he goes down to a crazy flake from Okadia. Pause. All right, you've killed Shuhei. Nobody else on site. You have a player towards jungle. All you have to do is plant the bomb and navigate this post-plant situation, and you win the round. We unpause, and Zontaras is planted in the open with nobody watching connector. Twist takes him out. Run out of time. No big deal. Twist gets traded. Pause. You got to get the bomb down. You have like 6 seconds left, right? CT smoke's fading. You know ultimate's probably there. So you got to try and get a plant off. Maybe it would behoove you to cover connector again. No, all right. Now Fledge gets a pick on Wakadia. You guys lose the round in the dumbest possible fucking way. And it's just more of these shenanigans on Inferno. This is a great win for Team Liquid. I think this more or less cements the fact that they should be able to make the major now. Like the amount of VRS points they've just gained overnight these last couple days in Fissure is remarkable. So whatever their next roster is going to be, they should be able to get into the major at this point, which is amazing. And at this point, if you guys don't understand what the dead roster buff is, all it means is that the weight of expectations are off. You can just play like you're playing at home. It doesn't matter whether you win or lose. You're just basically going through the paces. And oftentimes when that happens, teams will play a lot better than you might think they would, because when you're not stressed about winning, you tend to play better. So Liquid, they're playing carefree and they're swinging dick. Twist is looking amazing. Nafly had a fucking amazing series. He had this unbelievable clutch on Inferno where, you know, they're on a low buy, just Deagles and Tech 9s, and Naf just navigates around this post-plan situation with the retaking Aurora players just perfectly to snipe out the guy defusing the bomb. And it's just like, dude, I love Naf. I love watching Naf succeed. He's my goat. I love Naf. Nasty Naf. He's the one. Naf's back. You know, buy your Naf stocks now. Yeah. Liquid, they got a date against the Mongolz tomorrow. And listen, the way they're playing, sure, why not? They could win. I don't see why that's unreasonable. It'd be the funniest fucking thing if Liquid make the grand finals, or God forbid wins this tournament with a dead lineup. That would be the most Liquid thing to possibly happen. Furia versus Astralis was next up, and this was a tale of 2 games where Trained was actually relatively boring, a very standard, overly CT-sided affair, where in the second half, Furia utterly took over. They held Astralis to just 1 single T-side round win, despite some absolute heroics from Stare, and that's honestly a great place to start when it comes to the series. I am so impressed with Stare and the ability he's shown in this jump from being a support player who wasn't given resources. Now he's being prioritized as arguably the best player on the team, and he stepped into that role and shone in this event. I don't even think it was particularly close. He was the best player in the server in this series, but just here's the scoreboard for both games, and you can clearly see the issue. The spread for Furia was just far superior, and he was frankly let down by a lot of the extremities on Astralis. Yabby especially really has no excuse. Magus and Hooksy, they're your support pieces. I don't expect them to put up big numbers, but Yabby, he was a fucking absolutely worthless player for most of the series. And had he played more to what you would expect out of him, then this could have been a lot closer and at least gone to a 3rd map. It'd be interesting to examine a more close-fought train game for Furia, as I would argue they are the best train team in the world right now, and I really like watching them play. This game just left very little room for me to find intrigue, so we're going to skip past it and look at Nuke, because Nuke went to double overtime. It was very close, and Astralis had 4 different match points across regulation and overtime to close it out, but failed to do so. Let's zoom in and just examine how the overtime went. In the first round, Furia are going to accelerate for outside control, and Yekindar is going to get a great opening pick outside. I wish that Furia had done more with this map control, because they essentially back off of this and don't really push more forward to try and take secret control, throw another smoke wall, maybe take big garage. They just kind of hold and burn about 40-50 seconds off the round clock to reestablish lobby control and go back into a late A crunch. And like, that's fine, but personally, I feel like you got the map control, you got the early man advantage. I would press it a little bit here. I felt this ended up being far too safe. And when it came down to it, they come back into the A hit. They can't even get out onto the A side. They're forced to go out squeaky because they don't have any hut presence. They get stuck at Tetris and are forced to bail out downstairs just to get the bomb down because of the timer. But Jizz does a great job of fighting the remaining stragglers on the upper bomb site, leaving Yuri just to try and scramble to get the bomb down in time. And he does a good job of navigating into this clutch situation, gets down to a 1v1 against Magisk, but he caps off a great round despite struggling throughout most of this game by finishing him off in control and getting the defuse. I feel like Furia just burned too much clock here, left themselves not a whole lot of room, and allowed Astralis to take this first round a bit easier than otherwise would have, considering this man advantage early on. And I feel like I'm vindicated by that take, because in the next round, essentially the same thing happens. We go for the accelerate outside control. Yekindar gets a pick again, but Furia takes space past it. They get control of Mini, they pause, they wait, they then accelerate Fallen past into hell so that they can pinch A afterwards. And Fallen does a great job throughout this round, and this overtime is being exceedingly clutch. He gets a triple kill in this round, staying up in heaven. And I really like that they responded by essentially doing the same play, but correcting the unforced error they gave in the round previous. We close out the first half of overtime with just a chaotic late push onto the lower bomb site. I mean, this is just bedlam. If Device dies a second sooner, he doesn't get that pick. Suddenly we're looking at Furia taking this win. Fallen does his best to claw the round back, playing down on the site. And listen, Magisk once again comes through in the clutch after, again, not having a very good game. He gets that double kill before going down. Fallen in the 1v1, misses his last shot, and Yabby is just able to snake out the defuse. We switch sides, and I love the call from HooXi to kind of accelerate the pace. They wait about 15 seconds, then go for just your standard A crunch, full flashes, nades, mollies, everything, and Stair just launches out hut, gets a double kill entry, they get the bomb down, he gets a double kill afterwards in the post-plant situation, drops a 4K on Furia's head to get them the first match point of the overtime, 13-15, with 2 more tries to figure this out and get this game over the line. And this is where I think HooXi got a bit greedy. I don't agree with this call. They essentially go for the same play, just a little bit slower, and well, Furia have adapted. They are ready for another A push. Yuri has moved over from just being an A support player to being on Mustang above Hut. And playing Mustang is one of the best spots you can sit as a CT to spoil this A setup, as there's no good flashbang to really get you out of that position. You can simply do as Yuri does and look into the wall, and you won't be affected by any of the nades. Now, there is sometimes a molly for Mustang, but oftentimes teams don't throw it unless they know someone sits there like damn near every round, and Furia don't do that. Also, Yekindar really sells it by playing right next to the hut door, so that the players entering the bomb site aren't going to pre-check Mustang. They're more concerned with Yekindar right in their face, so Yuri's able to clean house and get a free double kill before going down. This sets up Molodoy and the cleanup crew to pick it up in the 3v2 post-plant situation, so that's 1 try off the board for Astralis. And unfortunately, a failure to convert in the next round will be sort of the death nail for Astralis in this game. They get clean swept in the second OT by Furia. Overall, I think Astralis played about as well as you can expect, bar Yabby really disappearing. I think at the end of the day, I agree with Thorin's take he put out on Twitter recently, that Astralis need to just go international. There's no reason for them to strictly stay Danish only, or at least not incorporate 2 international players. They all speak English. It's not like, you guys are from a country that doesn't have a high English speaking rate. You guys can all do it. You've all done it in other teams. So pick up some extra firepower. I don't think Yabby's going to work long term. And I think building around Stair and see maybe Magisk can be the IGL in like 6 to 8 months instead of HooXi. Astralis can be a much better team than they are right now, but they're kind of like maxing out. I don't know how much better you can get with this iteration of firepower specifically, but they could beat a team like Furia on a good day. Had Yabby played a little bit better, could have gone to a map 3, and we don't know what goes on from there. I think Furia played well throughout this, and I'm excited to see them in the semifinals tomorrow against Falcons. And speaking of Falcons, they beat Pain very fast. This was hardly a series, so I'm sure you'll forgive me if we don't really touch on much. It was 13-4 on Inferno and 13-6 on Ancient. Nico played actually just straight up fantastically. He led the series on both maps. He went for a total of 39-21 with 1.63 rating. Kill scale was fantastic. Muncie was not that great on Ancient, but he was very good on Inferno, hitting some insane flicks along the way. But I mean, dude, like, Kicksand went really good in this series. Like, everybody on Falcons ate when they needed to. Pain were just outmatched. Like, the closest they got to a positive player was DGT, and he went 24 and 28 across both maps. Alright? It was just a blowout. It is what it is. So, let's talk about semifinals very briefly. We have Liquid versus the Mongolz, and Falcons versus Furia. I would say odds are Mongolz are going to breeze past Liquid, but dead team buff is in effect. Liquid could do something totally stupid and win that game. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that there's a 0% chance that happens. However, I'm just going to legislate for a 2-1 Mongolz victory and for Liquid to be close to winning, but then do a Team Liquid at the very end. That's my guess. For Falcons and Furia, oh god, this game should be straight up fantastic. Furia also eliminated Falcons recently in another tournament. There's a little bit of a rivalry between these two teams. Both these teams want this grand finals chance. Both these teams are hungry, ready to win. I think the matchups are super interesting. Falcons, if they can deliver on the firepower they've brought in all of their previous games, I would say should be winning this. I'm going to expect this to go 3 games, and I'm leaning Falcons just out of deference to firepower. But I just, man, Furia is so fun to watch. I had to give myself a second to think on this. I'm actually not sure. This is one of those ones where I don't really feel comfortable saying that a team is more favored to win than the other. I think on paper, this is about as close to a coin toss of a game as you could reasonably ask for, and I think that's going to make it very exciting. We'll see. If you guys enjoy this kind of content, you show me by leaving a like, leave a comment down below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Help me take cases by the end of the year. Also, follow me on Twitter, LionHeartZ. Do it. Thank you to Skins Mike for sponsors video. Check out link to go to their website. Let them know I sent you their way. Thank you to my channel members. As the #1 way to support me, you go to the top link in the description. You get for $5 a month. You get to support me directly and get your name in the video just as well as a custom roller community Discord. Thank you to those channel members, including Early, Jesse, Justin, Milan Berta, Bubblesj, Dr. Cocktor, Patatas Kaftesi, PTR, B1 Games, Cody Foxworthy, Justin Vegt, I'm Flashbang, Snowy White, Rowdy, LBKcs, Snax Enjoyer, Crunchywater, zerotwocs, drudenae, chron, Gano, Zyro, Devvrat Singh, and Clyde Mead. Alright, I'm out. Peace out. A-Town, what's up? Fuck you guys. I'm tired.